What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. We have the green VX Clubsport on the dyno. If you watched the last video on a couple of boosted LS tunes that we did, you would have seen what happened with this thing. We did a bit of work to it, but I figured that today deserved its own video for what we're trying to do with this thing. So what we have here is a manual VX Clubsport LS1. As you can see here, it is turboed with just an eBay GT45 looking jobby. Seemed to go all right yesterday on the 98, but the really cool, important, different thing that we're doing with this car is it's probably a bit hard to see now that it's covered in a few things, but up here we do actually have a Continental ethanol sensor. So this car is still running the Gen3 PCM. We have not upgraded the ECU in this thing. This is a factory Gen3 ECU that we are trying to get the FlexFuel working on. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can do this. A lot of people don't even know that you can do it with the newer E38 PCM, let alone the fact that they literally came factory FlexFuel. But there are some operating systems for some stuff in the US that did come with the P01 in the States that can do 2-bar FlexFuel, and we're gonna see if it works. So we've never done this before in a Gen 3. That's why we decided we'd make this entire video dedicated to us trying to get it done. So in the car here, we've got a GFB boost controller, which is controlling boost. It also has a Innovate wideband, which has an input wide into the GFB boost controller. We also have an ethanol gauge display, which runs off the sensor so that the driver can actually see what the ethanol content is, which is important because using an aftermarket boost controller, obviously the ECU is not controlling boost, which means that the FlexFuel is not having any change on the boost control. So it's important that the driver can see how much ethanol content is actually in the fuel so that he knows how safe he can go with the boost on the controller. So that's where we're at with it. It'd be very interesting to see if we can do it. Yesterday on the 98, we had this thing pretty happy controlling boost at around 11 PSI. We were a bit worried about the boost control because of the gate position and the gate size, but it did work out. It's pretty happy at 11 pound, and it made just under 500 wheel horsepower on the 98 at 11 pounds. So it's time today to see if the Flex is going to work. Hopefully it does. That way we can add some pepper on the E85 and see if we can get this stock Gen 3 bottom end making around that 600 horsepower at the wheels. That's where we're going to pull it up for the interest of keeping the stock early Gen 3 rods alive. So let's see how it goes. All right, guys, so just got a little bit of cruise tuning and finishing off to do on the 98 this morning. Once that's sorted, we'll chuck the E in and see how the modeling is on the P01 on the Flex. The 98 is pretty much sorted, but because the OS, the 2-bar FlexFuel OS, we didn't use that to do the 98 tune. So the problem with the 2-bar FlexFuel OS that they have for the P01 is that it doesn't have any real-time capabilities, which means that you have to flash it every time you want to make a change. It's not like the really nice OSs we have for Commodores here in Australia where you have real-time. So what we did was used a real-time OS to do the 98 tune, to save the painfulness of having to flash every time Rex wanted to make a change. So he tuned it in real time on that OS. Now he's got to transfer that tune over to the 2-bar FlexFuel OS to then write that tune onto the ECU, and hopefully from there everything works and the modeling is spot on. So that's the plan, but unfortunately because the OSs are very different, Rex can't just segment swap everything. He has to actually go through and manually change everything over to the new OS. So it's going to be a bit of a process. We'll let Rex sort that out. And then we'll get some E85 in this thing and see what it does. So I really want this to work because I freaking really like this car. It is just the car, the color, turbo LS manual, everything about it. I just freaking love it. So if we can have this as, you know, an onsong performance car with a FlexFuel P01, that'd just be freaking awesome. I really love this car. So Rex has got everything changed over. He's got the new S on the ECU. So we're going to leave the 98 in it for now and do a run on the 98 with the new OS in the ECU just to make sure that the OS change hasn't changed anything. Not only that, but we did notice yesterday when we first got it on the dyno, first started tuning it, but this morning Rex noticed that it's charging a little bit lower than we'd normally like to see. So it seems like maybe the alternator is a little bit sad. So being that injector data obviously relies so much on voltage,
it'd be a really good idea to get a good baseline on the 98 right now with how the alternator's being, to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we go to the E85, because maybe it was running at 13.8 volts yesterday, and we go to the E85 and it drops to 12.8, and the fueling goes all over the place, but it's not a very accurate representation of the actual modeling of the FlexFuel in the OS. So it's important to have, obviously, a good back-to-back, a good apples-to-apples comparison, and to make sure nothing's changed. So we'll run it up on the 98 again. Rightio guys, so it appears to be all good, everything's all sweet. So did a couple of runs with the new OS. So after yesterday's dyno runs, Rex just pulled 2 degrees out of the whole timing map, just as a safety thing. So transferred that over to the new OS, loaded it in. First run, without that 2 degrees, the ECU started picking up knock. At this stage we're quite certain it was phantom knock. And then the ECU, because it was knocking, started pulling heaps of timing out. Now, like we talked about, that's not good if you've got an issue with boost control. So with the timing out, as you can see, ramped a bit more boost into it because you've got a lot more exhaust energy happening and making way less power. So Rex just put those 2 degrees back into this map, and hey presto, pretty much exactly back to where we were. Fueling's bang on, so we're all sweet. It's time to get some E85 into this thing and see if we can party. This is exciting. Righto guys, so I tried to get it on the gauge on the camera before, but it might have been too hard to see, but we're at 66% E, so Rex just chucked 120 litre drum in. But as you can see here, and as I tried to show you with the camera on the fuel pressure gauge, we are having a bit of a fuel pressure issue. It's dropping off there, which is not ideal. It's meant to be a Walbro 525 in tank. That's what we were told it was. So by all accounts, that should be plenty of pump for what we want to do. So we should not be having an issue with fuel pressure of that pump. If it's a genuine pump and it's been installed in properly, we should be okay. But as you've seen from multiple episodes of us dynoing cars, there are a lot of issues that can be had with fuel pump installs, particularly pumps like this that draw huge amperage. There can be issues with people that don't upgrade wiring properly, and then the current draw becoming a problem. There can also be issues, particularly in-tank pumps in Commodores, with people not actually setting up the pots properly when they replace the pump, and they don't draw. So potentially, if it's the issue we do see quite often with Commodores, with the actual pot in the tank not being set up properly to actually draw fuel through the Venturi setup of the pot, it may just be a problem of 20 litres of E85 is not enough for it to actually pick up all the fuel. So the plan was to see how it went at that E66. We've got another 20 litres of E85 we're going to chuck in now, which should bring us up a lot closer to E85, and hopefully with that extra fuel then covering the pickup in the pot. If that is the problem, it should sort it out for now. Obviously, if that is the problem, it is still something that we definitely recommend to the customer actually get sorted out properly for the long term. But it'll sort of allow us to continue the tune if that is the problem by just putting some more fuel in it. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, not too bad. you know, there's a bit of a difference. It's not exactly where we'd like it to be, but it's also not out like, you know, it's not unsafe for E85. It's, as far as just the modeling of the ECU goes, it's not that bad. And we'd certainly be happy for it just to be that. We'd probably adjust this in the base map for the E85. It means that the 98 would be a little bit richer in this area as well, but at least our E85 would sort of be a little bit more rich in that area too. But yeah, so far so good. We'll chuck another 20 litres in it, see what it does. So from 480 up to consistent 530s.
Sort of yes and no, because this is actually a slightly different part of the map because we've picked up.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's different boost, so it may not affect this.
This is like 185 kPa and this is about 170.
Yep.
So it is slightly
different parts of the map. So we should be able to hopefully adjust it in the base map without it having too much effect on the 98, unless we wanted to make more boost on the 98. But
so the dyno's reading just slightly different to the onboard. The onboard reckons like that's pretty close to our 0.8 lambda.
Oh, okay.
Like on E, that's not.
That's fine.
That's
happy days.
This is a bit of a.
That's the problem. Yes.
Yeah. And
so,
as we've talked about in other videos, it's the. Like we can tune around this now, but we don't know what it's going to do
when the problem's fixed.
That's it. So we need that consistency to be.
So we'll see what it does with another 20 litres of E. The 480 at 11 pound on the 98, even that's not really leaning on this thing. It wants to keep going. It wants more. We just figure that because 98's so hit and miss, it's so easy to get terrible batches of 98. Things can go wrong real quick if you've got a crap batch of 98. And because this thing's got boost control issues, if you have a crap batch of 98 and it starts pulling timing because it's got knock retard, it's going to worsen the boost control problems. So we figured that just keeping it safe and happy on the 98 was best, particularly if it's going FlexFuel. If he wants to party, he can go put E in it, and we'll just leave it nice and safe on the 98. So.
You just spell it at the end of each run.
Righto, boys and girls. So the extra 20 litres has alleviated our issue with fuel pressure. So unsure if that is, like I said, an issue with the pot not being able to draw enough fuel when it's not over the level of the pot. Or whether it was the actual, just the cool down time and the extra fuel allowing the pump to cool and stuff. So we won't know until we've done a few more runs back to back. Basically, if after a few more runs it starts to come back before the fuel level really drops too far, then you know that there's an issue with the wiring or the pump getting hot or something like that. But if it stays like that, well then we can be pretty sure that it's an issue with the pot not being able to draw enough fuel in. But a few dramas, even with the extra 20 litres of fuel, we're still only getting E67, E68.
It's kind of 72-ish.
Oh, E72. Oh, awesome. Actually, that's good. That's pretty good. That's for E85. That's pretty close to 85, 72.
It's not going to make any difference, eh?
No. No, it's good enough. Basically, your burn characteristics after about E40 don't change too much, but that difference from, you know, E10 up to E40, that's where you have most of the change in your burn characteristics between ethanol and 98. But anyway, this is a bit of an issue. Some belt problems. And what we can see is that on the tensioner it's forward and we're missing the back rib, but on all the other accessories it's back and we're missing the front rib. So something's out of line, and along with that our charge issues seem to be basically progressively getting less and less, which probably also wouldn't be helping our issue with fuel pressure if that is a problem as well. If it's a wiring or pump issue, having low voltage isn't going to help our amperage draw and heat situation. We'll keep persisting, keeping an eye on things. At the very least, having that little voltage isn't changing our modeling, and ejector data isn't too far off that it's making a huge difference, which is a really, really good sign. That's the best of a bad situation. Righto guys, so a few issues, always is with tunes. As you've seen from our videos, you know that no tune ever really just goes right. There's always problems. It's funny, every customer is always like, oh, I'm so sorry that my car was such a problem. And we're always like, it's literally every single one of them. really, it's not a big deal. You're not special because your car has problems on the dyno, guys. Anyway, we've ordered a new belt. It's not going to be until Friday. We'll do some more investigation to figure out what the problem is, whether it's tensioner or something else. And we'll have a talk to the owner about whether he wants us to just replace the alt tensioner. All right, we've got a cook tensioner.
Yeah,
so
that'll do it every fucking time.
Needs a tensioner. Belt won't be here till Friday, so we have time. We'll talk to the owner about whether he wants us to just put another alt on it. Basically, it's going to be a few days before the tune's finished now, but the important and exciting thing is that it works. FlexFuel, P01, stock Gen3 PCM, it works. It freaking works. That's sick. How cool is that, Rex?
I'm pretty excited. It's pretty cool.
I'm pretty freaking pumped. Pretty pumped. So,
like Max and I were talking about before, it's not perfect. There's a few tables and things that we can't adjust. So I'd like to see, for example, timing is basically, there's only your base timing table and then the FlexFuel, which is just a
modifier.
Yeah, a modifier. In the E38s and in the other ECU, you can have a multiplier table for composition. So like Max said, you really don't get the knock resistant properties of E85 until you get to about E40. So what we would normally do is ramp the timing very slowly till E40. Then you can sort of bring most of it in by about E60 and taper it out from there. So as long as you've got anything from E60 up, you've got pretty much all of your happiness of ethanol. But with this, there's no option to do that. So as far as I can tell, it's just a straight up interpolation between E0 and E100 or E85. I'm not sure.
There's no adjustable scaler. It's just a...
So you have to be fairly conservative in your timing. Otherwise, you could be in trouble around that E40 mark if you get too aggressive on the E85 scale. So, but on the whole, there's a couple of things like you'd want to have pretty good injector data. We'd definitely set it up as a boost reference just so that there's only one flow rate the ECU is dealing with. You eliminate that little variable that the ECU could get confused about if it's not spot on.
Anything to help with the modelling.
Yeah, anything that, basically if we can eliminate any variable that we can to give it less things to work out. But it does work.
Works, guys. It freaking works. So, it's currently the next week. Rex got the new alternator, new tensioner, and new belt on this thing. It appears the new alternator has fixed our charge issues, so hopefully the new tensioner and belt fix our belt issues. So this thing's pretty much ready to get finished off. Unfortunately, my young fella, my son's very, very sick at the moment, so we've just come over just for a visit to film this little bit of a segment, but I'm at home with him, I'm not working, so I'm not gonna be here to film the finish of the tune. But as you saw from before, it's pretty close. We just had that belt issue, which needed to be rectified, and we wanted to rectify the alternator issue just so that we knew that it was leaving right. The issue you have is if the injector data is not absolutely perfect and it's running at a lower voltage than it normally would with a good alternator, the risk you run is when it leaves here and he puts a good alternator on it, it changes the voltage that the injectors are running at, all of a sudden the fueling changes. So we just really wanted to put an alternator on it for the tune so that we knew that it was dead on, and it appears that's fixed our problem. So I won't be here to to film the end of the tune, but I will tune in after it's done and let you know how we go. It's gonna be an absolute weapon of a street car. We're really stoked that it's all gonna work and everything's gonna be happy, but yeah, I'll tune in once it's finished. Another one that I'll chuck in this video now that I'm not going to be here to film a whole video on it, which will be happening straight after this clubby, is this clubby. So this is a beautiful red VY Clubsport. Really, really nice car. I'm a huge fan of this car. So what we've got here is an LS1, a 4L65 that's been built from Craig's Automatics. So it's a built 4L65. So for as long as this thing's aspirated, it should be fine. What we've got here is this customer actually purchased a complete cam kit from us at OSP Warehouse. So complete cam, everything you need that comes in the kit, we sell them on OSP Warehouse. He actually bought a set off us, so it's got its CHE trunnion upgrade. It's got the Crow Cams 1250, which as you guys know, is just one of my favorite cams for cathedral ports, period. It's just such a good cam for cathedral port heads. It just responds so well. It's choppy, it's really streetable. It sounds awesome and it makes awesome power. So stoked that he actually approached us at OSP Warehouse and sort of asked for a cam recommendation, and this is what we ended up going with, and we're absolutely wrapped with this thing. We think it's going to be awesome. We've also got some next gen CNC ported 241s. So, you know, CNC ported heads, 1251 Crow, exhaust, the whole berries. As you can see, VCM OTR, he's actually cut the infill panel around the OTR, similar to what this customer has done, cutting the infill panel around his turbo. So both of these cars, really, really nice examples of people that have just put a lot of thought on keeping cars nice and tidy, I would absolutely own either one of these cars in a heartbeat. I really am a huge fan of both of them. So yeah, obviously it's another, again, it's HSV. I can't remember exactly what diff gears are in it. I think they're pretty short though, and it's got a decent red diamond converter in it. So exactly, yeah, it's just a freaking awesome combo. It's just a lovely car. So anyway, I'll chime in at the end of it with the results of this one as well, because again, I'm not going to be here to film it, and I just wanted to chuck it in this video so that there's a bit of stuff going on. So this is just going to be a 98 tune on this sort of fresh combo, and yeah, really looking forward to this car and this car. Both awesome cars. Yeah, we'll chime in later on. Cheers, guys. Righto, guys. So it's the next day. I've just dropped back in. Young fella's still real sick, so I'll just make a little bit of a thing. But so the green thing, we thought that our 600 was going to be a cakewalk. What Rex actually found was any more than that sort of 12-pound of boost that we were, or that 11 to 12 pound we were at, any more, and the IATs started to just go through the roof. So IATs were just getting real dangerous. Like we were up around, Rex tried to put 13 pound in it, and it was like 70 degrees IATs.
It's running 13 and a half.
Running 13 and a half now, yeah, okay. So, but yeah, basically IATs were just too much. It wasn't responding, didn't want to make any more power because the air was too hot. So it ended up pulling it up at 560. But what we didn't do yet was actually pull that air filter off and run it without the air filter, which if that air filter is a big restriction, that could be a cause for the high IATs. We'll just see how we go. If we have time, we're going to get it back on the dyno and just run it back up without the filter and just see what difference that filter makes. But at this stage, we're pretty sure it's just going to be a cheap intercooler issue. It just needs a better intercooler. By all accounts, that GT45 should have quite a bit more puff left in it. It just needs a decent intercooler. So we'll run it without the filter and just see.
Keep in mind, because I have a look, like those E-Paint, they call them a GT45. They're not even close to being a GT45.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why they call them that, if it's the frame size or what, but the actual wheel sizes and stuff, nowhere even fucking close.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we could be out of puff.
Basically, there are like a 600 to 650 horsepower turbo. I think they're around that 66, 67 mil wheel. So they're not actually
that big.
To a 35 or a 366 or something.
Oh well, we'll run it up without the filter and see what difference that makes. But it's probably a bit of a combination of a not very good intercooler and a turbo which we are sort of out of puff with. So anyway, that's where it's pulled up. So it's that 490 or something on on 98 on the low boost and 560 on the high boost on E85. The FlexFuel's all working. Rex actually diluted the fuel back down, obviously to check through the scalars and everything on all of the different ethanol contents. At the moment, it's at about E25, and Rex reckons even on high boost, it's happy at E25. So even on 98 at high boost, it shouldn't really be a problem. He reckons there's no knock. Obviously, you run into the risk of getting a really bad batch of 98. That's when things get risky. But it seems to be pretty happy even on high boost. And it's making 520, did you say? About 520?
I think that last run it made 520.
On high boost on the E25 or whatever it's at now. So really good result. Everything's responding well. I really like that cam in that car, and it's actually responded really well to boost. So big fan of the car. Just needs, obviously, maybe a little bit more compressor and a better intercooler to make that 600 goal. But if that air filter is really restrictive, maybe we'll see, a good 15 to 20 horsepower just in there. But we'll just have a look if we have time. Try a few things. Obviously, there's a few things we'd like to try with both of us here. A lot of things that are pretty hard for Rex to do on his own while he's here. So hopefully later on this week, I can get here and actually do some work and we can have a go of a few things. So red car is back on the hoist now, which is not what you want, but had a few funny things going on with injector data. We got all that sorted, but it killed a starter motor. So the starter's cooked. Today's Tuesday. The owner flies back out to work on Thursday. So he was pretty keen to pick it up tomorrow afternoon. So he's that keen that he's actually found a starter down where he is and he's running it out to us right now. He should be here in about an hour. So it's ready for the starter to go straight back in. While it's up in the air, there's a few other things the owner asked us to do that we're going to sort out. Wants to change the fuel filter, and he's got some tips for the exhaust, which he just wants us to tack on because he wasn't confident enough with his welder. So we'll get those sorted. But yeah, hopefully we'll have a starter in about another hour, and this thing can hopefully go back on the dyno and get tuned this afternoon, do another cold start tomorrow, and be ready to be picked up tomorrow afternoon for him, is the idea. So hopefully that's all sorted. But the run-in, everything went fine on this. The gearbox is sweet. The motor's nice and quiet. It's not making any funny noises. everything's all good. Righto guys, so I'm finally actually spending a day at work after nearly 2 weeks. Been a wild couple of weeks, very, very sick, says the young fella. But anyway, red clubby left last night. What an absolute pain that ended up turning into. So the starter issue turned out to not actually be a starter at all after quite a few hours of fault finding. What we actually found was that the main engine earth had been put onto a painted bracket and wasn't earthing properly. The bolt had sort of come loose. That was causing the starter issues. So anyway, earthing issue was found, so there may well have not been any issue with that that original starter. But anyway, what a pain that was. So then Rex had to tune it yesterday, and it was doing a few weird things, a few funny things, but got to the bottom of most of them. And the owner, who sort of lives 2 hours away, was on his way out to pick it up, and like 20 minutes before he was due to get here, the car actually snapped. There's like really at the bottom of the ignition barrel, there's like a spring and a little thing that actually turns and operates the ignition barrel.
Right where the shaft goes into the switch.
Yeah, so yeah, what Rex is just saying, I don't know if you can hear it from there, but right where the shaft goes into the switch on the ignition barrel, snapped. So it snapped the ignition barrel 20 minutes before he was meant to get here and sort of do it. So I'd sort of drop back in just to take it for a drive so that Rex could sort out some shift points and stuff, the shift scheduling and tune the box. I got here and Rex had the dash or pulled apart and the ignition barrel out of it. So what a nightmare that was. But anyway, we managed to get another ignition barrel out of another one of our cars and change over a few keys and do a few things and got it to work. By that point, the customer was here, so Rex just got the customer to drive, and Rex could sort out the shift scheduling and the box tune with the customer actually in the car. So ended up being an absolute nightmare of a job, but that was the result. 374. It didn't want to do any more than that. Not sure why. We didn't really have time to really fault find a heat, but it's got a huge converter in it, and Rex was saying it is showing like a good 500 RPM slip in the top end, just in the converter. So 500 RPM over your 6500 or 6800, whatever it was turning it to, that's about 10%. So, you know, 10% on your 374, that's getting a lot closer to 410 sort of thing. So it really could just be converter slip. Either way, like the converter and diff gear combo with that cam, the thing is freaking awesome. I would own that car in a heartbeat. It's so sick. Such a sick car. So really happy with how it drives on the street. Just didn't quite get the number we wanted, but yeah, it drives awesome. It's a freaking weapon. So hugely happy with that cam. It's such a nice cam. It's my all-time favorite cathedral port cam. I love it. So anyway, that's the red car. Hopefully we'll get a chance to get the green thing back on the dyno tomorrow, but we'll see how we go. So we got big green on the dyno again. Now it's currently got like E20 in it, like a full tank. So what we're gonna do is on the E20, like we said, Rex reckons even at full boost it was fine. So we'll use full boost on the E20, do a run with the filter on, take the filter off, do a run with the filter off. If it makes a huge difference, well then we'll worry about getting more E85 and draining the tank and then refilling with E85 and trying a run without the filter on the E85 to see what the number's gonna be without the filter. Hopefully a little bit closer to 600. But if we don't see that much difference in the run before and without the filter at the moment, we won't bother because there's quite a bit of messing about and trouble to go and get E85 and then drain the tank and fill it and stuff like that. So if it doesn't look like it's going to be a huge difference, we won't bother with it because it's got to be, you know, a fair bit of time involved in making it happen. But anyway, we'll give it a quick look. So we're trying to keep it to a minimum amount of runs because the tires on this thing are getting very sad. As you can see, they're starting to delaminate and come apart. So like I said, one run now, one run without the filter. If it makes a difference, we'll worry about E85. If it doesn't, we're not going to worry about it because we're not going to keep running it on these tires. So. Hello, boys and girls. So, even on the E27 or E28, wherever we're at the moment, pretty big difference. So, pink there is with the filter on, blue is with the filter off. As you can see, we've picked up about a pound of boost, from 516 to 537 at the wheels. So, definitely worth trying on the E85. So we'll get some more E85, drain this tank. Because we have the boost controller set up in closed loop for the having no filter on, we're gonna have to leave a open loop setting in the boost controller for when he wants to go to power cruise and take the filter off and stuff. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep targeting the same boost it was before. But that's a significant improvement. Obviously, the filter is a significant restriction, but even without the filter, we're still getting a climb of 20 degrees in the IATs over a run. So, although it was obviously a restriction like that's not going to help an IAT situation because you have a higher pressure differential over the compressor wheel. But either way, we're pretty sure that this turbo is pretty well out of puff. But anyway, I'll check back in. Unfortunately, I've got the young fella again today. I'm going to go home. I'm going to have to go home and give him a nap and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I won't be here probably for the E85 runs with no filter, but I will check in. We'll let you know how it goes. Joel just left with the green clubby. It's going home. I didn't obviously get here in time to get any of the runs in. Flynn's riding his tractor. He had a big nap, so ended up a bit late. But this is what ended up happening. So on the E85 without the filter, Rex managed to get a 576 and did manage to get like 15 pound into it, which is awesome. So IAT is still really high. So it's still not, just the filter. It's still sort of just out of puff, but he only managed to get sort of 3 runs on that E and got that 576, and the tyres were just starting to get really, really unhappy. So not only that, but did start to have some fuel pressure issues. It started to have some issues maintaining pressure up, which Rex managed to figure out on his own, which was a bit hard when he was here by himself. He had to set up his phone on a bit of a janky thing to film the gauge so that he could see what the fuel pressure was doing. So a few fuel pressure issues and the tyres, so we just decided to pull it up. 576 is still a great number, but I mean, at the end of the day, the real awesome thing here is that the FlexFuel on the P411 or P01, it worked. Everything worked just as we thought, just as it should. And that's a FlexFuel tuned Gen3 PCM LS1. And yeah, like I said at the start of this video, I freaking really, really like that car. And I'm stoked that it's that one that's getting around with our FlexFuel and our name on it. It's a really good one to have in the arsenal, in the repertoire. But yeah, so there you go. 576 on the E, held up basically by the turbo, and 490 on 98 at 9 pound. So it's yeah, awesome sounding car. Really stoked with the cam that's in that thing. It was a 1249, so it's the one underneath.
Oh, is that what it is?
The 1250, yeah, it's 1249.
Okay,
so
I didn't know the cam specs.
Yeah, it's got its Crow Cams 1249 in it. So a lot of you know that I'm a huge fan of the 1250, which is what was in the red one. The green one had the 1249 in it, which is a very similar cam. It's just a little bit less duration, but otherwise it's quite comparable, and it's quite a nice little cam. So overall, that car is so freaking sick. I'd own the crap out of it. The owner's stoked with the result. We're stoked with the result, and that's the end of that. So thanks for watching. As always, guys, you're looking to FlexFuel tune your Gen 3 Commodore. It can be done. We can do it. Shoot us an email. And anyway, we'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace out. See you. Bye.